This week on the podcast and here on YouTube, I'm taking you behind the scenes into my paid community to watch a guest workshop I had. I brought in Max Emory, the founder and CEO of Time Capital Bookkeeping Services, which is a real estate investment bookkeeping firm. And we're not only diving into talking about the real estate investment niche for bookkeepers, but we're going so much further into different ways to run your practice and how you can land clients as an introvert and how Max is helping people do that these days, in addition to coaching for real estate investment bookkeeping. So whether or not you're interested in diving into the real estate niche, or you're just here to glean whatever you can as a bookkeeper, become a better bookkeeper, we are going to be talking about any and all of the above. So if you're ready for it, let's go. Welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast. Welcome, everybody. This is our wonderful guest, Max. He's here to just offer another perspective of how to run a business in bookkeeping, especially with a niche. Max is a real estate investing father, veteran, all the things. So we're just going to go ahead and start there. And I'm going to let Max take it away and give kind of his background and how he got to where he's at. And then you guys are kind of getting like a behind the scenes podcast interview.
Mm.
So
Yeah, this is very
welcome, Max.
interesting. Thank you so much, Serena. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we brought Serena in to talk to our group, our bookkeeping for REI group, and yeah, they really enjoyed that. And I know people are still watching the recording from that. So thanks again for
Awesome.
doing that. But yeah, so I'm 32 now. I completely basically started over professionally when I was 28. So just like 4 years ago, I think I'm coming up on 5 years as far as like full-time entrepreneurship goes. And so, kind of backing off of that, I've had a few different career changes that happened prior to that as well. I think I'm sticking with this one. It seems to be going okay. But prior to that, so straight out of college, mechanical engineering, I did that for a little bit. I got bored of that very, very fast. Like I think after like 3 months or something, it just wasn't the right fit for me, the office environment and all that stuff. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. I've always had this kind of like itch to serve. And so I was like, okay, cool. This sounds like, I mean, my parents hated that idea, but it seemed like a good time to try that. And so quit the engineering job, commissioned into the Marine Corps, long pipeline to get in. And about midway through there, I started investing in real estate. You know, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm sure all of you have heard of that book,
Mhm.
iconic book. So that kind of like, I didn't grow up around stuff like that. I'm from a very like small, rural, poor town in South Carolina. Never even heard of real estate investing, anything to do with any of that. And so that like blew my mind. I think 4 months, I was deployed at the time, but once I got back to the States, 4 months later, I purchased my first duplex and was kind of off to the races with the real estate investing stuff on the side. And so I still had, I guess, a couple years left in my Marine Corps time. So continued to invest, built up probably within a year after being out of the Marine Corps, built up to like a 25 unit portfolio of rentals just on the side,
Wow.
mostly long-term rentals. I toyed with like short-term rental, mid-term rental model as well, but mostly just long-term rentals. I did the BRRRR strategy. If anybody here is familiar with different real estate strategies, so I got out of the Marine Corps. I'm kind of going all over the place. So I gave myself a year. So I got out of the Marine Corps, went back to engineering, gave myself a year because I didn't want to do engineering, right? And I was like, okay, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I had always nerded out on personal finance. I was networking with a ton of other investors at kind of like a similar level and maybe even ahead of me. And it just clicked like, oh, wow, like all these people seem to be having issues that kind of root back to like this lack of financial clarity, like not really knowing their numbers at like an intimate level to be able to make decisions. And I was like, I'll try this bookkeeping thing. And so I don't know if you guys have heard of Bookkeeper Launch, but that's the program that I went
Mhm.
through. I was doing it kind of at night. I was working my engineering job. I was doing that at night, still doing the real estate. I was doing a little bit of Turo. I was driving my wife nuts and doing all this stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. I think I got my first. So I still had the engineering job. but I was coming up to the date that I said I was going to quit. It was December 17th, 2021. And so I got my first client in October. It was a firearms shop, not real estate,
Hmm.
just to kind of get going. And then quit the job, didn't have any other clients. And then January came, and I think I secured like three real estate clients, maybe just through some networking groups that I was in. So full-time entrepreneurship, January 1st, 2022 forward, doing this bookkeeping business full time and been doing it ever since.
Awesome. I love hearing everyone's stories of how they get into accounting. It's like very rare for someone to answer the question like, I've just always known I was going to be an accountant.
Hmm. Hmm.
Most of us accidentally end up here one way or another, and it's always really fascinating to hear like what brought people in. And it's refreshing too to understand, to like know that more of us are passionate about this career than not, if that makes sense. Like
Hmm.
it's really just fun to hear. And I think whenever we do come across stories like this, it's like it feels like, yeah, there is actually the ability to have passion in accounting, which sounds super nerdy, but like,
There really is.
but yeah. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, so we want this to be, kind of casual conversational. But in the meantime, I had my own kind of not necessarily selfish questions, but things that I think people would want to know but might be afraid to ask because a lot of our community may or may not have a niche. Some people are exploring going into the real estate niche, and this is obviously one of those niches that is more complex and you can easily get in over your head if you don't know what to look out for. So, with that, I would love if you could kind of highlight some of the areas within the overarching real estate. I mean, I know there's so many different avenues that you can go into. Maybe that's one thing that we talk about. But some of the things that you've seen people struggle with or feel like they're in over their head around.
Yeah, I think it starts with just understanding the industry. Within my community, I just come across it a lot where someone says they want to learn, how to do bookkeeping for real estate people, but what they're talking about is like a real estate agent because
Right.
that's all they know. And that's like honestly, that's a hard niche to serve because it's just so simple, it's like they can automate a lot of that. What we're talking about is real estate investors who have like typically get sold into these like crazy entity structures that they don't really need. And like,
Mm-hmm.
that infuses a ton of complexity on the bookkeeping side, on the tax side, even on the legal side, because they never run them right because they don't,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not this massive corporation that has a team dedicated to making sure everything flows the way it's supposed to flow. So yeah, I think it starts with understanding like what is real estate investing, what are all the different activities within real estate investing, like what's the language, like we have this like REI lingo like worksheet guide thing, because it's like you're going to hear a lot of words that you've just never heard before because it really has its own language. I think more so, much more so than other niches out there because we've served a ton of other types of companies as well, mostly service based. And man, none of them have been as complex or had like kind of their own language like the REI industry does. So yeah, that's really where it starts.
So understanding, I mean, obviously that's one of the things you can do when going into any niche, but it
Mhm.
seems like it's extra important in this one to understand the industry, not only the language, but like you were saying, there's all these entity structures that tend to happen. So like, can you go into that for anyone who hasn't come across this issue yet? Like, give us an example.
Hmm. Yeah, so the most common one we see, which like this is fine, this is fairly simple. It's like a holding company, so like an LLC, hopefully single member. If it's something else, then you're gonna immediately have some complexity there. But a single member holding company LLC at the top. And then kind of like if you guys have heard of like series LLCs, there's like a bunch of subsidiaries that kind of tie to the holding company. And, if we're just talking about a landlord who owns a bunch of rentals, they'll have a few rentals per LLC. Like that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But some investors, and they usually do this way too prematurely, they create a property management company that doesn't own any assets. It just manages the assets, but they are the manager, right? Like this isn't a legit company. And then they have a bunch of LLCs that own the assets and they never flow transactions the way they're supposed to because they're just not big enough and they don't
Yeah.
understand. But they got sold into that by an attorney who wasn't thinking about the operational daily part of it. They're just thinking of like, oh, maximum liability protection. This is great. Operations over here, ownership over here, they're separate. That's great. But on the bookkeeping side, that creates instantly a lot of complexity. And then we have to charge them more. Their tax pro has to charge them more. So like it creates all this stuff that they don't really want. And then at the end of the day, they don't have the liability protection because they're not flowing things the way they should typically. And then the PM company may file as an S corp or something, or it may be a partnership. And then the other entities may be something different. They may have a C corp floating up here for like payroll, but like they're not at the level that they should be to like capture that benefit of the
Hmm.
tax. Yeah, it just like we see so many of these like investors with a few properties, and it's good, they're thinking ahead into the future to where it's like, okay, once I have 1,000 rentals, this is how things need to be, and they're implementing it at like 5 rentals, which is a big issue.
That's a balance of having the vision and building the correct systems for that grand vision, but there's got to be a happy medium.
Yeah, yeah. I tell them like, let's just focus on making money right now.
Yeah.
And then, kind of once you have like really good cash flow coming in, and then once you have, some decent equity there, like something to protect, then okay, go to the fancy attorneys and, have them put something together for you. But right now we just need to focus on making money.
Yeah. When you come across that in your firm where people have created these structures, do you ever have situations where you're able to get them to kind of like unwind that? Or do you just deal with what you have and they just end up having to pay more for your
Yeah.
help?
Yeah, a specific client who we signed last fall like immediately popped in my head. I actually did a breakdown for him where it's like, here's what your attorney told you to do, and that's fine. And here is what it costs for us to service that structure. And it's like, he only had a few rentals and it's like over $2,000 of what we have to charge him, which is ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. And then, so if you wouldn't have done that, and if you would have gone with like this structure instead, and then we can grow into that elevated structure eventually. But if you would have just started with this, then we could charge you like $600 a month, So it's like over 2K versus 600 with like all the subscription costs and our bookkeeping fees and all that stuff. And so I try to give them something tangible that gets their brain to start thinking about how what their attorney does and their CPA does and whoever does affects like everything else, like day-to-day
Hmm.
operations as well as bookkeeping, service fees, subscription costs, like because they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking like, oh, I'm starting to acquire assets. I need to protect those assets. And that's really all they're thinking about.
Yeah. And the attorneys and everyone usually aren't educating clients because I see this with just the simple S corp election. Like they're
Mm-hmm,
usually not
mm-hmm,
educating clients on what it actually entails on a day-to-day or year-to-year level or the bookkeeping or just logistics of like moving money around. Like you can't just, especially if there's multiple S corp owners, you can't just take a draw. The other
mm-hmm.
owners need to have the equal draws basically.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I personally got sold into that one way too early.
Yeah.
It was like the
Yeah.
second year I was in business or something. CPA was like, let's do an S corp. I
Yeah.
was like, okay.
And it really like, with the QBI deduction now, it doesn't
Mm,
really make sense for a lot of businesses. So,
that's interesting.
so anyways, side note on that. Leslie said, just to confirm, are you speaking mostly to investors who focus on single family rentals and smaller multifamily rentals, like duplexes, quads, and small unit number properties that are sole owners and investors?
That's a great question. Yeah. Yeah. We actually, I know I've talked about rentals a lot. We actually really focus on flippers and wholesalers. So, like the more transactional side of real estate, we do an audit each year of like, who are our top clients that we just love to work with? They love to work with us. It just like feels easy and it's also profitable.
Hmm.
And every time it's majority flippers and wholesalers. So that's who we market to and that's who we go after. Now, a lot of them, they are also landlords, right? They
Yeah.
have the side portfolio that they're building over time. We actually do have quite a few clients as well that are just pure landlords. But we kind of have, to answer your question, Leslie, we kind of have everything in between. So we have like, the person who has the W-2, who has like 3 to 5 Airbnbs, and they just don't want to deal with it, right? And they want a smooth tax season. So we have that person. And then we have like the fund, like the real estate fund that purchases 40 new rental properties a month. And then we have syndicators and we have a lot of different asset, classes. And so yeah, I guess that's kind of our range now. Like our, most transaction heavy client is going to be that fund that purchases a ton of properties. And then we
Yeah.
have a few Airbnb clients as well that just, they just have a few on the side.
Yeah. So I know a lot of the industry knowledge that you've gained was from actually being in this industry on a personal level with your own
Mhm.
investments and things. So how have you gone about transferring that knowledge to your team? Because you're not the only one supporting your clients, right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and I guess for context, like I don't do any operational day-to-day stuff. I don't do any bookkeeping. I don't do any, like the only like advisory that we do is just like reviewing and interpreting someone's financials for them. Like we don't do any true advisory or anything. So, but yeah, our team handles all that stuff. And so we have a pretty extensive training program. And that training program starts with like, this is what real estate investing is, like here's the language, like here's what these people care about, here's what they're looking for, from their financials, all that sorts of stuff. And so they get an intro to it for that. And that was super duper helpful whenever we were hiring people who had no prior experience, in that industry.
Yeah.
Now we try to only hire people who have a little bit of experience in the industry and also have just like a lot of just bookkeeping experience. But it's still helpful for those people too, because like one of our most recent hires, she has extensive like property management experience, like bookkeeping for property management companies. Very
Hmm.
similar to what we do, but it's also different. But with her knowledge, we can quickly kind of convert her over to what we do because she's already familiar with properties and what types of transactions they see and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So, but yeah, it's really that training course. And then, with investors and how complex the industry is, something new pops up every week that our people just haven't seen. And so Thomas, our operations manager, he's our SOP creator, so he's like, oh, what is this new thing? Let's figure it out. And then we'll create an SOP around it. And something going off the rails, and I'll stop it after this, but something cool that we're doing now is we're creating kind of like this AI thing for our team. This is like our second or third iteration of it now, to where it catches all of our SOPs and transcripts from videos and stuff like that. And so now someone can go to that thing, ask a specific question, and then it'll spit out hopefully an accurate answer.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes it's hit or miss. So
At
like you
least a
still
good
have to,
starting point.
yeah, you just have to sanity check it. But yeah, so that's something else that's helpful for that person coming into the team.
Yeah. Instead of like bothering someone else with their questions.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Actually, you're giving me so many ideas of things to implement in my firm too. I'm like, oh
Good.
yeah, I do have a training for onboarding people, but I think I need to revamp like the training around our specific niche
Hmm.
and just talk more to that because you take that knowledge for granted of like oh, I mean, you can just come in here and obviously see these things, but it's not second nature to someone who hasn't been in the industry.
Yeah, we really, really stress like for our client facing people, like you have to inspire confidence in our clients. Like when they talk to you, there needs to be no question in their mind that you are an expert. And
Yeah.
so like anytime like I got a text a couple of weeks ago from one of our newer clients, saying, "Hey, we hopped on the onboarding call and the onboarding specialist didn't seem to know like what we do." And I was like, "Oh, that's weird because I did a very warm handoff with them and, broke it down, but maybe I made a mistake." And it
Hmm.
turns out I did, it turns out I was just missing one word that told them that, they thought they did something different than what the investor actually does. And so, obviously we quickly corrected that.
Yeah.
But we're just always doubling down that like, how you come across to your clients like really, really matters. And you need to always inspire confidence. So if there's ever any sort of education or training gap, like we try to squash that as quickly as possible.
Yeah. On that note, do you send your team or bring your team along to industry events?
So we have yet to attend an event as a team. I I would like to do that. I myself right now don't go to a whole lot of events. Like I did
Hmm.
in the first few years, I went to a lot of in-person stuff, but then things started developing in my personal life. And like right now, I just don't do that. And
Right.
then to be honest, I've never gotten a whole lot of clients. Like, I guess, like if you're looking at it from an ROI perspective, I've
Right.
never gotten enough from like in-person stuff. And so I really don't do a whole lot of that. If we're talking like bookkeeping industry events, that is something I would like to do in the future just to get around other people in the industry and, see what's out there. But no, we haven't done that yet. I would at a minimum. So probably a month ago, I told our team, like, hey, if we hit these big goals that we have for this year, you guys just let me know what you want to do. Like it'll be on the company's dime. Like we could do a kind of like a, vacation. Like we're all remote, right? We're all over the
Hmm.
country. We have a few offshore personnel as well. So that this would be tough, but I'm like, we could do like a short trip all together or you guys can just get bigger bonuses or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to start, getting us together in person, but we just haven't done that.
It's definitely a challenge and it's hard to do every year, but we usually tie ours along with ZeroCon.
Oh,
We
okay.
go to
Okay.
ZeroCon because we use just zero for our clients.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I've been toying with the idea of not just accounting industry events, but like niche specific events just for an education point so that like it might give more of an ROI to your point. Like, because when I go to, like you said, when I go to my niche industry events, I rarely ever land clients. The only
Mm.
ones that I've landed clients for are ones that I'm speaking at.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So, but as like networking, but also I'm not the best person to like do a lot of networking because I'm very introverted.
I'm not either.
So that's kind of on me. I've never gotten that direct ROI even from sponsoring events, but it seems like you might get a better ROI from the perspective of if you look at it as let's take the whole team and we all just absorb as much as we can from conversations with potential like people in that industry, whether they're educators in the industry or other real estate investors, just to understand their problems and be in the room with that whole thing. I think, like, in my mind, that seems like a high ROI thing because then the whole team understands more about the industry. Obviously, that requires everyone being really open to absorbing things. Not
Mm,
everybody likes to
mm.
participate in stuff like that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. Even us going to some sort of big real estate conference and everyone has a task of like, you have to ask this question to 10 people today.
Yeah.
And so come back, we're gonna have dinner together at the end of the day. Each person is gonna say, yes, I did it, no, I didn't do it. And then we're just gonna talk about kind of our experiences from the day. I think that would be huge.
Or just even like the task of like talk to one person who is at any stage in their real estate investing or whatever and find out one pain point or
Mhm.
one thing. Like one of the things that I love asking people, like on my podcast when I interview other business owners that aren't bookkeepers or accountants, is like, what is something that if you have a bookkeeper, you really love that they do or wish that they did? So it's like
That's
you can
good.
gain a
Yeah.
lot of insights. And then honestly, it ends up being a lot of the same answer. So it's like, okay, if everyone's saying that same thing, we need to make sure we really double down on that if we're
Hmm.
already doing
Hmm.
it or implement it in our firm.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. If if I'm speaking like on a discovery call with a prospective client and I know they've had prior experience with bookkeepers, I always ask them like, what did you like about them? What didn't you like about them? And
Hmm.
the didn't is always communication. It's
Yeah.
always communication. It's like, well, they just kind of dropped off and like now I don't know what's going on, or
Yeah.
they said they were going to do this by a certain time. It didn't get done. And, they're not communicating with me the way I want them to. Like it's always something centering around communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Something on the personal level for sure.
Yeah. 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 Their
Personal
personality or
touch,
yeah.
communication,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one's a little bit of a backtrack, but we were talking about the training that you give your team about the industry. And Becky asked, can anyone take that or is that an internal training?
So my bookkeeping firm is called Time Capital Bookkeeping, but there's also a Time Capital University. And so that came out of, so going back to Bookkeeper Launch, I'm still in that Facebook group, still participate. And so I posted, this was back in probably April of 2023. I posted a job posting in the Bookkeeper Launch group and like a few other groups, but I always love pulling from Bookkeeper Launch. And so I think I needed a cleanup person. And so I didn't get a whole lot of applications to be honest with you, but like right around 100 people either DM'd me or commented on that post and asking for mentorship around the real estate investing industry. So like basically, hey, I want to learn what you guys do at Time Capital Bookkeeping and I want to do it for myself. Like I don't want to work for Time Capital Bookkeeping. I want to do it myself.
Yeah.
And so I funneled all those people into a Facebook group. It's called Bookkeeping for Real Estate Investors. That's what the Facebook group is.
Good
And
SEO.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to complicate this. Like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that group's got like 4,900 people or something in it now.
Wow.
And I don't advertise it. It just kind of
Hmm.
grew organically. But so yeah, I just started answering all their questions, and they were like, the thing that kept popping up is like a training course, and I was like, man, I don't have time for this. Like I'm trying to grow my own firm. Like I think we're like getting ahead of ourselves, But I was like, all right, it kept coming up, and so I was like, okay, just give me like 4 to 6 months, and I'll kind of knock it out in my off time, and
Hmm.
and we'll see what we can do. And so I actually, I had a whole bunch of Loom videos for my internal team that was, kind of poorly organized, but SEO, they were searchable, so they could find what they needed. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll take a lot of those videos, make sure there's no sensitive client information in those videos, and then I'll just kind of form a course that'll be my baseline, and then I'll just whatever pops in my head, I'll just add it to it, and I'll make sure it's organized as far as kind of like the life cycle of a client that you're going to see starting from scratch. And so,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's what I created. And I used to just sell it as one off, and I will still sell it as a one off, like lifetime access type of deal. But now we have a community, a Skool community. If anybody's heard of Skool, Skool. And so you can go there, 7 day free trial. You get access to the entire course for a full 7 days. And there's also a multi six figure bookkeeper playbook course that's more like the business side of a bookkeeping firm. So
Hmm.
you get access to that full course for that 7 days as well. And then if you decide you want to stick around, it's $47 a month. There's a whole bunch of templates, guides, tons of marketing stuff because my executive assistant is like really big on marketing. So there's tons of that stuff in there. We have live calls every now and then, and we kind of change up what we do throughout the year, but sometimes we'll do challenges and stuff like that too. But yeah, to answer your question in a super long-winded way, Becky, yes, that training course is in there. It's called the Nuts and Bolts course.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, which speaking of marketing, aren't you guys doing something special around that?
Yes. Yes. Why, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
That was a great plug. Yeah. So for context on this, so we've had the paid community now, the bookkeeping for REI. I'll link it. We've had that community now for coming up on a year in June, and so it's got like 160 members in it. And so what we've constantly been asking them, like, what is it that you need? And we also ask a lot of prompting questions to try to like root out, like, what is it that they actually need? And the thing that kept popping up is like how to get their first client or how to get their next client. Like, that's what everyone is struggling with.
Right.
And so we've kind of been over the past, 6 months, and then we're really going to get intentional over the next 3 months. So we're actually building a second community that it's not associated with any niche. Like, all niches are welcome, or if you don't have a niche, like, it doesn't matter. Good marketing and sales info applies to pretty much any business, any niche. It doesn't really
Right.
matter. And so yeah, everyone's welcome, but yeah, it's going to be called GoPro Bookkeeping. And how I came up with that is I was like, I feel like some people in our community, they're so good with the technical stuff, but they're still working for someone else. They haven't really like gone pro yet, like in the bookkeeping space, and like
Yeah.
started their own business. And like, that's the difference. They can't attract leads and convert those leads into clients. So they're subcontracting, or they're an employee for someone else's firm. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like, all these people want to start their own business. So I'm like,
Right.
I think that's the difference between people who go pro in bookkeeping. It's that, at least in
Yeah.
the beginning, that's what it is, while it's just you. And
Hmm.
so yeah, it's basically going to be like marketing and sales for introverted bookkeepers. So like,
Right.
yeah. So it's like, how, because I don't do really anything in person. I'm not out there doing like super salesy stuff. I'm not cold calling people.
Yeah.
I don't
Me either.
like DMing. I've never had luck with DMing. And so, that's kind of all the extroverted stuff that we're pretty uncomfortable doing. And so,
Hmm.
but I've had a lot of luck with the other stuff that doesn't require that, right? And so
Same.
that's what we're going to cover in this
Yeah.
group, and we'll have like live calls and stuff too. So
Perfect. I'm
yeah.
so glad you answered these calls of like it's when people come to you asking for help and like you're like, okay, I guess I need to do this. It's born out of actual like service instead
Mm,
of like looking at dollar signs. And same thing with like the question of and the struggle of people needing to find their first or next client. That's one of those things that comes up a lot in our community too. And sometimes I feel like a broken record. It comes up on almost all of our Q&A calls
hmm
with new people in the community. And yeah, the truth is there's so many ways to do it. One way might work for one type of specific bookkeeper versus
hmm
another, and one way might work for like attracting a certain kind of client. So it's like there's so many options. Everything works.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Everything works if you work it,
Yeah.
but it's going to depend on your personality for like what you want to work.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, so we kind of have to get to that. And then it's like, okay, we have a solution like in the lane that you kind of want to stick to. And that's a big thing too in the beginning with all the marketing and sales stuff. It's like, let's just focus on one channel, and
Yeah.
like go really hard at that one channel until it's producing fruit. Let's create a system around that, make it predictable. And
Hmm.
then, if we want to entertain a second thing, then cool. Let's stabilize the first, it's predictable. And now let's go tackle the second thing, or just double down on the first thing, which I'm a really big fan of. If something's working, just like triple down on it instead of
Yeah.
doing something new. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it gets easier that way. Unless you
mhm,
don't actually like that methodology or then it's not really working if it's not bringing the right type of people in.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but I think one of the biggest challenges with that is they don't have enough patience to allow the time for it to work.
That's a huge thing because like the majority of what I've done is online marketing, whether it's social media or like, SEO website stuff, Google business listing stuff, mostly social media, to be honest with you. That's been a big hit with us. But yeah, it's like all of that stuff takes a while to get going. Like, even if you're just going to do some sort of strategic affiliate program to where
Hmm.
it's like, I'm only doing this, like I'm cold calling CPAs or what, cold emailing CPAs all day. Like even something like that takes a few months to like bear some fruit. So I think
Yeah.
that's huge. I've seen a lot of that in our community where it's like, I did your Facebook blueprint and it's been 90 days and it's not working. I'm like, I mean, I don't think social media produced anything for me until like over a year. So like
Yeah.
you just have to stick with it.
Yeah, you really do. The other aspect is the line of work that we're in is something that requires so much trust. So the length of time it requires to convert somebody is longer when you're starting with something cold, right? Like social media, rather than a warm introduction as a referral. That life cycle of converting a client is a lot shorter in general because they've got built-in trust. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something to consider too when you go the online marketing route. Like you are building trust that entire time. So
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be crazy consistent. Consistency is going to be, kind of like your intensity with all the online stuff. You just have to be incredibly consistent.
yeah, awesome. So when do you guys kick that off? And is that going to be linked at Time Capital University or a different
Oh, you
website?
know what? Let me scroll through. I'm glad you asked that because I've already forgot. So
I
we
know, I'm
have a
the
wait
same.
list link. Let me see. GoPro bookkeeping. Yeah, this is not on our web. Like you guys are the first group I'm even mentioning this to.
Awesome. I feel so
Yeah.
special. This is
Yeah.
lovely.
I mean, we have nothing. Like I created this waitlist form that's super quick for you guys to fill out. Created it like 2 days ago. It's like we have nothing right now. When we will launch, it's probably going to be, I'm thinking early August right now. Even if you guys are like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to sign up, you can just get on the wait list and then that way you'll get information about it. We'll send you a few emails here and there just so you have the information. But I'm thinking early August, maybe like the first week in August is going to be a good time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
So,
excited about it.
yeah, I'm super excited to see how that goes. And yeah, that's something that it's funny the way that this has happened to me multiple times throughout my time in business of like where I'll have like an idea of like seeing a need in the market. Like I
Hmm.
see the same questions come up as you're saying with your community. And it's like, I know this is a need. Like I know other people are also doing it, but people are still asking. So something about the way that that person's doing it doesn't jive. So it's a
Hmm.
need. And then I'll just like sit on the idea for a long time because it's not something that I really want to do. And then someone
Yeah.
else like you will come along and be like, I'm going to do this thing. And I'm like, yes, I don't have to do this then.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, to your point, like I invite you to this community. Now, the way Skool works, you have to be a member of the community to have like a referral link, right? And so then it's like now you can still benefit even financially from that thing that you didn't necessarily want to create, which is
Yeah.
really neat.
Yeah, for me, it mostly comes down to like making sure that like my community has the tools that they need, whether I'm the one that creates it or someone else. It's like
Mhm.
my goal is for people to just get the resources that they need,
Yes.
from
Yeah.
people with integrity. That's the other piece.
Yeah, yeah, you have to do a good bit of vetting. Yeah, that's huge. I find that far less in the bookkeeping community. I feel like everyone is just kind
Yeah,
of, they just kind of have that because you're not going to last in this industry if you don't have that.
I agree.
In other industries I've dabbled in, that it's not there to the degree that it is there within our industry.
Yeah, it's really instilled upon us, especially for anyone who's gone through accounting classes. I think during my first accounting class, my professor was like, if you don't have a conscience, get out.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
just leave the room right now. If you're willing to commit fraud or anything like that, like, if you have that bone in your body, you do not belong in this industry. And I was like,
yeah.
dang.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Because everything we touch is so sensitive and there's a lot of room for error. And then there's also a lot of room for like fraud. There's so much room for fraud. It's very easy to accidentally commit fraud. Like that's the nuts thing.
Yeah, and more so these days with all the scams and everything. So
Hmm.
yeah, Becky's follow-up question. I just want to make sure we attack this. The
Yes.
time capital and REI are two different items, correct? And the wait list, we dropped that. So I'll let you kind of talk about the differences.
Yeah, two different items. Yes. So there's time capital bookkeeping. And then the way we serve real estate investors, we do bookkeeping for real estate investors. And the way I think about it is Time Capital University is like a sister company. Like it is a legit separate company, but it's like a sister company that basically teaches bookkeepers how to do what we do at Time Capital Bookkeeping. So it's like, here's our internal playbook. Here's all my best practices for the technical stuff, the business stuff. And so, Time Capital University is kind of the umbrella for, we have the bookkeeping for REI school community, and then we're going to have the GoPro bookkeeping school community.
Perfect. Great
Yeah.
explanation. Yeah, so it's very similar to the way that I've structured. I have my firm, which is not the same name as the Ambitious Bookkeeper, but similar. Like in the
Mhm.
Ambitious Bookkeeper, I basically give you how I run my firm.
Yeah. And
And
that
then,
makes total sense.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
we've already created the resources and other
Yeah.
people need the same, need the support. So, yeah, cool. Perfect. So, what are you doing on a personal level in with your life right now, in addition to all of these things? And how do you find time to do so?
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I've always had a lot going on personally. Some things just happen to you and then other things you initiate yourself. And so I'm no different in that. We've had a lot of trials and tribulations with my wife's family, medical stuff with my wife as well recently. And we also have two boys under two. So we're like, oh, we're
Yeah.
hooking and jabbing with them. They're amazing. And so lots of stuff going on personally. And then, so I don't invest in real estate actively anymore. Like I think I still have one rental. I do a little bit of private lending to other investors that I found out is much more passive than actually owning
Yeah.
owning the asset. So if you guys have a lot of extra cash flow or cash sitting around, that might be something for you to look into. I have resources around that as well that I've used. And so on the business side, you guys know about the firm, the university, like the firm is 95% of my work week. The university is the other 5%. And so I have an executive assistant, Lindsay. She's amazing. She runs the majority of the university. And then my operations manager, Thomas, is also amazing. I hope he never leaves me. He basically runs the bookkeeping firm. And so I don't know if you guys have heard of the book 10x is easier than 2x.
Yeah.
If not, I highly recommend reading it. I'm at the tail end of it now. I should have read it much, much sooner. But to answer your question, I'm constantly identifying like what my 20% is. So it's like what's my, what are the top highest leverage activities of how I can spend my time? Because I do have reduced work days now.
Yeah.
I used to work 12, 14-hour days consistently, work on the weekends as well to just do everything. But now I don't have the option to do that if I want to be a good husband and a good father, right? And so
Hmm.
I have very strong boundaries around my work now. Like I get into the office around 9:30, I leave at 5:30, and then outside of that, husband, dad, I no longer work weekends. And so I basically had to become a master delegator. And
Yeah.
it's like what is my unique ability? What are I like to do, I tell our team to like just do the exercise of like if somebody has a gun to your head, you only have 2 hours a day to work, but you still have to get everything done. Like, how are you going to do it? Just like do that mental exercise. And it's like, oh, a lot of what I'm currently doing could probably be automated if there's like a safe way to do that. Some of what I'm doing doesn't even yield the results I'm going for. So let's just
Yeah, it
stop
does
doing
cut
it.
it.
Yeah. And then maybe I need a person for this like last little bucket. Cool. Let's hire a good person, maybe part-time person or an hourly person or whatever and delegate that. And then now I'm just left with like my core unique ability, top 20% activities that really drive the needle forward. But you constantly have to be chasing that because it changes as you continue to grow. And so, yeah, so I don't know if I'm doing that well, but that's what I'm doing.
That's what you're figuring out right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a really good exercise to just consistently do. Whether, even if you are like solo in your firm right now, to just like do that exercise because you're going to end up eliminating things. Like, do you
Mm,
need to be spending 3 hours making Canva graphics? Maybe
probably
not.
not. Yeah, probably not.
Um,
And you don't
but
need to update your website one more time.
no.
No, no, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat where my days are actually even shorter. So
I know they are. I'm
it's like
actually
you're like, I've
jealous.
tried to be on your calendar.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I pretty much work from like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the weeks that I have my kids. I have them every other week at this
Mhm.
point. So, and even when I don't have them, I still try to stick with that schedule. Sometimes I'll bleed into more towards 5 p.m., but in the grand scheme of things, that's still not a full work week.
Especially as an entrepreneur. I mean, that's a very tight schedule for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that, I still allow myself to do like CEO level type stuff on weekends. Like if the kids are occupied and we're just chilling at home, I will brainstorm some stuff. Like, so that's still work, you know?
Hmm.
It's just not me working at my desk on client work. It's me
Hmm.
like mapping out the revamp of Elevate or whatever, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
which I've been doing a lot of lately. So,
That's awesome.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've noticed you seem to have really good discipline around things. Like it seems like you respond to things at certain times and like you're not. I think that's huge, especially for us who have crunched schedules.
yeah.
Like, yeah, like not having all the platforms open, all day, every day, where it's like you just get lost in this constant, like, replying to people, cycle. And so, yeah, I think it does. Once you kind of get it ironed out of what works, the hard part is like having discipline.
Yeah, I let go of a lot of like I rarely even log into LinkedIn anymore. Every so often I'll
Mm,
check messages there, but turns out it's mostly just spam.
hmm.
A lot of like my email, I don't try to keep it managed really. I just like check it in the morning, check it in the afternoon or evening, and I don't remember if I responded to you when I actually responded to you or scheduled the email, but I know I
Hmm.
wrote that email at night.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yep,
So
yep.
that happens sometimes, but I kind of figure like if someone really needs to get a hold of me, like they can find a way with other like not going through social media. Like don't send me important messages through social media because that's at the bottom of the barrel.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's really good for me to know because I keep hitting you through Facebook.
Oh, that's a little different because that to me is like a messaging app on my phone. So
Hmm.
it's not like I don't have to be logged into Facebook to get my messages, which is great. I used to
Makes
hate that
sense.
change that they made, but I love it
Hmm.
now.
Yeah. 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 It
Like I'm
allows
not
that
on the Facebook
discipline.
app.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Yeah. Yeah. I have that one on my phone too because I get prospects through that channel. They
Yeah.
hit me up, but I don't have to like do any scrolling, which is great.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really beneficial. So, I mean, it's taken me years to really build up the discipline and there's been times where like my inbox, I have an email program called Spark and it sorts
I've heard of that one.
emails versus like it sorts newsletters versus notifications versus emails from actual people.
Mm,
And so I really only monitor the emails from actual people, and the
mm.
rest of them, maybe once a week, I'll go through and like open it up, the newsletters, and just skim it to make sure nothing got accidentally like in that folder. And then I archive pretty much everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, if I
Yeah.
delete something or archive something that was important, they'll come back around.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, and so can Spark unsubscribe to things for you?
What you can do is block
Mm,
senders through
mm,
Spark, but it doesn't have that unsubscribe feature like Gmail does natively. And
hmm.
so that's one of the only things I don't really like. But occasionally I do go through the newsletters and just like do the unsubscribe thing every so
Hmm.
often, but at least it like groups them separately, so I don't have to look at them. And now there's like an AI feature built in that you can ask it to like skim my email and make sure there's no deadlines approaching or whatever. And like
Perfect.
that's kind of
Yes.
cool.
That's so funny. I was just about, I don't know how far off the rails we're going with this part of the
Anywhere.
conversation, but I was going to bring up AI. I mean, we are doing a lot with AI. I was very weary of it and
Yeah.
hesitant, and I'm not a techie guy. So despite being an engineer, I'm not a techie guy. So I'm just like, I don't want to deal with that. But probably 6 months ago, maybe even a year ago at this point, I was like, okay, we got to get on it. So now we're heavy into it. Been messing with Claude Cowork lately, and
Mm.
it's really, really powerful. It can do some really, really good stuff. Like the way I think of it, it does have a chat feature, but the way I think about it is it's kind of like a chat GPT that can actually do stuff. So like it accesses your browser and you see
Hmm.
the mouse moving, clicking on
Oh,
things.
wow.
And it's like it's when it hits some sort of roadblock, it figures it out. It brings in whatever it needs to bring in to get around the roadblock. Like it's so smart. Yesterday, I had it doing just some admin stuff for me. Like I needed to get information in this Google Sheet into this sheet. They have two totally different formats. I need everything to be uniform. And it knocks that out in like 5 minutes. And it's
Wow.
like, whoa, that just saved me probably, I don't
Few
know,
hours.
20 minutes. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. I'm like a
maybe
few
more,
hours for
30
me.
minutes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really good for stuff like that. And you have to be careful what you give it access to and never give it
Okay.
access to like client stuff. At least not yet, but yeah, it's super powerful. So definitely check that out. With the unsubscribing to the emails, I was thinking like, oh, if you want to give it access to your email, it can definitely do that. You can be like,
Hmm.
hey, everything in this folder, just unsubscribe, and it would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still like to see like there's some things that I'm purposely subscribed to because I want to
Mm,
like stay up to date on things, but I don't really need to read the emails. I can just kind of like skim to see what the subject is if I want to open it, but I don't
yeah.
necessarily want to
Yeah.
unsubscribe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
occasionally I
I
do
get
go through
that.
and clean house for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's one of those things that, depending on your personality, like a lot of people feel like very like I need a clean inbox. I need inbox zero. And
Mm,
I really strived for that at the beginning. But then there comes a time when that's one of those things that can be scratched off the list because it doesn't move the needle.
mm-hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
said, like you can delete emails, you can archive email. I just put everything in the archive. I don't even try to file things away in folders
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That was corporate Serena.
You're
Entrepreneur
cooler
Serena
now.
isn't paid to come into the office and sit at a desk for 8 hours. She's paid to actually produce. So
Yeah.
I don't have
Results.
time to sit and organize my inbox, nor do I want to necessarily pay someone to do that because it
Mm-hmm.
again doesn't bring in revenue, that doesn't bring in clients. I
Mm-hmm.
monitor it enough to know if we're getting client inquiries,
Yep.
obviously, but
Yep.
like I really encourage people to like let go of that corporate mindset and perfectionism because like that really does if it doesn't move the needle, like it doesn't belong on the list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Most organizing activities actually don't, move the needle. It depends on what your goals are, but
Right.
yeah, it's like what is the highest and best use of your time? Like chasing that 20%. And then the 2.0 of that is like, well, I just handed off this task that I deem pointless to someone else who I'm paying. Like, what is the highest and best use of their time? Like now I'm starting to see things like that where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, like so and so shouldn't even be doing that. Like if I thought it was pointless, then why am I paying her to do that? So like, let's get that off of her list and let's elevate her activities and try to chase her 20%. And so, yeah, I think that's super powerful of just asking that. I schedule everything on my calendar. I'm a big like time
Me
blocker
too.
and it's very specific. And so I'm like, I look at my calendar every day and try to project out. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, why is that even on my calendar? Like that doesn't matter. And so we can remove that block or give that block to somebody else or whatever.
Yeah. I sit down at the beginning of every week and I look at like what's on my appointments for the week. And sometimes
Hmm.
I end up canceling things because I'm like, that actually, I don't really have time to sit in that kind of a
Mm-hmm.
call, or maybe we move it forward because there's more pressing issues like this week. But yeah, that's a good use of time to sit down for 30 minutes and figure
A
out what you're
hundred
doing for the week,
percent.
because it
Yes.
sets you up for just walking into the week work like feeling more organized and
Yes. At the
stuff like that.
beginning, like 5 minutes at the beginning of each work day as well. And then 5 minutes
Hmm.
at the end, just do like a very quick audit of like what I set out to do today. Did I actually do it? Like, is it stuff that matters? Did I actually do it? If I didn't do it, what took my time? And it's probably stuff that like just doesn't move the needle. You answered emails, you spent way too much time in Slack, like you you were addressing things that maybe like weren't important and they also weren't urgent, but they were like easy on your brain, so you just did it. Like it's
Hmm.
probably stuff like that.
Yeah. And there's time of day where that's appropriate
Definitely.
sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. For me,
That
that's
2
towards
p.m.
the end of the
slump.
day. Yeah.
Like, let me
Yeah.
just look at my email right now and
Yeah.
knock out what I can. But
Yeah.
awesome. Well, we are about at we're at time, and I want to be cognizant of everybody's calendars. So I'm gonna say, if you guys have any lingering questions, please pop them in the chat now, or unmute
I'll
and ask. That works too. It's
I'll
a small
pop my
group.
email in there too.
And yeah, if you'd like to connect with Max, please do that and go get on that wait list for that. Is it like a challenge that you guys are, is it structured kind of like a challenge, or
So
the
it's
thing?
going to be an extensive marketing video-based course, an
Okay.
extensive sales video-based course, and then we're going to do calls similar to this. We'll have like office hours and stuff like that, Q&As, and then yeah, we'll probably have a. Right now, I'm thinking we'll have probably a deep dive call on topics that are relevant every other week. We'll see if people are into that, and yeah, and then other than that, we'll just have really valuable conversations in the, kind of the forum section of Skool. So like
Mhm.
in our existing community, like honestly, that's what people get the most value out of. It's like communicating with each other in that forum
Yeah.
style and getting your questions answered super quick, whether it's me or another member or whoever. But yeah, we'll have the courses, we'll have templates and tools and scripts and all that stuff. And then we'll have, calls and different types of calls will develop over time. But yeah, we're just going to keep it super simple. Everything is going to be best practice based of like what I've actually done and seen success with. And then if there is anything outside of that that I think is also valuable, I'll bring it in with the context of like, I didn't have success with this, but so and so had a lot of success with this. So I just want to get it in front of you.
Yeah. There's a lot of that happens in my community because people ask, well, did you do this? And I'm like, I haven't, but I know other people have and have had success. And
Yeah,
it really comes down to A, the bookkeeper's personality, and B, the industry that they're targeting, because
100%.
that mix can just totally change
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everything. So
Yep. Yep.
awesome. Well, I super appreciate you making the time to come into the community. And thank you, everyone who decided to show up live and participate. I appreciate you
Yes.
guys too. I know it's a Friday afternoon for a lot of people. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, thank you again so much, Max. And we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you so much for having me. This was
Yeah.
awesome, Serena. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
keep chatting. We got a lot of good stuff going on.
Yep. All
I
right.
love it.
Bye.
All right. Y'all have a good one. Bye.
Thank you to everyone who helps make this podcast possible. Content and interviews are produced by me, Serena Shoup. Our intro and outro music is written and performed by my brother, Ian Gilliam. Editing is also by Ian using his awesome sound engineering skills along with Descript software. Hosting and publishing is by Buzzsprout. And you can check out the show notes for links to all of these amazing resources and resources mentioned in the episode.
Be ambitious.